kera okusitamira aho tukareba corruption tukagira ngu offices eziri in place nazo zirarwanise corruption. So konga kiyakigambye Abany'Ibanda tukabicenga ninga konka katugende turebe endijo nsonga ebiro bisatu byo kwa mwendo oko kwezo kuturumu aba Uganda Local Government Association na Uganda Urban Authorities baka petitioninga parliament bakugira ngu ebyo buhereza omu Uganda nebeteze nduru bicumbagire tibyakine mugasho. So bagira ngu parliament ine ugire ki yakora kurango buhereza bahikombantu. Ekiganiro cyeri izoba ntwenda kifokasinga kurango itwe nk'Abany'Ibanda itwe nk'Abanya-Uganda tukakora kitwine omuhimbo ogwe kureba ngu twine kitwakoraho kugira ngu twatekinga position ninga twakora efforts kureba ngu twaganira ansonga egi ninga twamara ebizibu ebyo ne bitwagamba. Ninza kwakira abantu bona biza kuganira topic egi. Twine keynote speaker Chris n'Umuny'Ibanda kandi ariyo nasoma PhD yeye omu Cape Town University of Cape Town no mu South Africa kandi ine binde byakubinje byakukora narga kiborara kandi binje naza byongero yakunda ninga nabasa kusamuna cyakwiyanzura nko Muny'Ibanda ningo umuturage wihangeri. Ondizo raganire watuganira topic egi dozaba twine otwire naganira kuyatandika. I think answeremu n'omuturage waha twena yesimbaka ruko wa meya kandi babemba kacanga kongagize ngo aryoru aize na patensia kandi nazaura bakasumu. Ondizo twine Patricia Takizere Nosa raiza kutujoininga no anupu ayesimbra abo member of parliament inja farago babaji mwiro badi ano opposite ino ndizo rukwenda ujimwiha otinko manyana iza kutugambara. Ondizo twine amasuko gakasangura ati akafunente bempango atungu namasuko gakibare twine deputy RDC omusawa abahonorable councillor ari kutetemesa kanso Ibanda district ba muhekirumo cyamani ati deputy RDC wa Kibare honorable Kamagara yaja mutaka be masuku gacyo nati namasuku gakashangura ngo ati namasuku g'Ibanda Ibanda municipality. So ariyaha so no batu yambegane ya topic egi kandi twaheza ntuzawuroringa nkaburizo nitwe nkaba ry'abaturage twe feedback twe entekateka yitu aha topic ejo mwena abatuyeni mwiza nimbareba mwebare kandi tukutandika ekiganiro eki munchirizo muzindaro ngutambuze nguhe our keynote speaker atuganire ebare
webare justice murije basebona banyabo bisho banyabo kabataro. What happened? Okay. Hey, Navatareta. Okay. I mean, first of all, Mwebare, thank you for inviting me. I was very surprised. Dennis Kuyangambirengu, I have to come, so I thought I was a participant. Kuna verendiaho nareba poster keynote speaker naibuza chininza gambachi because I saw on the panel hariho abantu abakuberene bahereza these keynotes. Kwonka when they told me what to talk about, naneri izoba I think just as yandabiramu what we should talk about, I decided ntuzagamba for me at least 4 things. Echokubanza symbolism ya fireplace. Why the fireplace is important now as it was then. Then ekyakabiri government nergahi. Uganda no shako gamba government omanya big car, big people, big money and power. RDC ali ahambwe nizagamba biche konka RDC hakwija the government naijana yona, office of the president, but where do they get their power? Then echindi actually just as echin where chingambera role of the citizens itwenkabantu citizens nchimanyisa chi, what do we do, how do we participate? And then echamheru nechi I think echinakunda nabo yachingambera our community Ibanda turahi ntuzahi ninga ntwendachi sicho kubanza fireplace. I'm not very old konkeri zoba narabomuka, and every time I go to my village nume barezumuka ezabwaru ezensheke wazmanyi, I usually go there shitama tunywa waraji, crude numujimanya, so we were seated there abasheja bakuru abazei, my grandfathers when bari mu age nkejo babaruho, then the chairperson else wana agumana ajya konkechi n'ikintu kirungi kurgira tukatwarachi tushitama tuhanura. In fact ebizu byo communities bikaba addressed from the fireplace. So I really want to thank you guys. This is a good concept. I hope it sustains itself kugira ngu at the end of the day in subsequent meetings hona hozerichi hijwirabantu, because that's where problems were solved. In fact abasheja, if you had problems with your wife, this is where you bring your problems and they will be solved. If there were thieves on the village, this is where the problems would be solved. So I like the idea of a fireplace. And just as Namanya, when in my work we had a program where we used to do fireplace conversations, and this is what we wanted to do. Government, this is what I really wanted to talk about. The origin of government. RDC, Nomanya government hayarjire, where it started. No, I'm not going to lecture the president. Tuganira, it's Ganiro she. It's Ganiro taru, it's Ganiro tamu lectures. But the origin of government, because it's like deeply rooted, and Ogyansis reajirangunisho my PhD, so numza kunsasra. But it's deeply rooted in philosophy. And humanity attempted to resolve the tension between individual freedom and collective survival. I think in ancient times, people, it was man eateth man. The strongest would survive. So it was this whole thing of individual. And if you go to people like Karl Marx, they told you that as much land as a man tills, so he owns. Ebyo kuja titles bikapita kozechi bikapitaru. So ikuwa birohinga ahiwa command ho wawe. Then ndijo nakorachi. So it was that tension of individual freedoms. What do you do? Why don't you do? Why can't you kill your neighbor, for example, to take his wife? And survival. So I think philosophers realize that it is better to recognize that there is need to create a small group of people to kabahereza some form of authority, and we entrust them to make decisions, manage resources, and put together some rules. But remember, on our behalf. For me, this is the most important thing. Tuena tukatu powerful. We cannot survive if we are all struggling to survive. So tuasharamu ngoreka to identify some people. We give them some authority, delegated authority. Nito twine that authority, but we are delegating the authority, our authority to them, to manage, set rules, manage the resources for our own survival. So the power, the idea started with us. It went covered. Now, if you think about it in that lens, no ebuza no hoine, who has the power? Na RDC. RDC no dakunsasa ni major point of reference. President Ataruho. So you are going to be the major point of reference. Is it the MP? So first of all, this power was voluntarily handed over by us, the citizens. and we agree on what we call a social contract. So abantu abitwata mu government bagambire ntwenda A, ntwenda B, ntwenda C. First of all, delegated power. The second part is social contract. Ebinde kubani bakora ki? Nibakora. As I say this, nyendo reflecting about what is happening today. Ekiruho hati. Aza nabyo niza kubigamba horanyige njano za kunsasira. I was going to go to philosophy, Hobbes ebiyagambire, Locke ebiyagambire, but that is not important. So, first of all, we delegate the power. So the first thing is delegation. Power nito twine, authority nito twine power, to identifying abantu bache, to abahereza that delegated power. The second part is we agree on a social contract. Ebintu byo tukora ki? Turukwenda. Ekyakasha tune kintu kya legitimacy. Aba bantu abituwahereza this authority, where do they gain the legitimacy? Legitimacy nergankahi? Omuritu. The process of identifying those people. So in elections zizire, in those days we had kings, where their legitimacy was from birth. Kujango yazarwa inechikopo mungaro mbwenu nuweking, and they had divine authority. And they would determine everything. In fact, in Buganda, the Kabaka owns everything. He owns the women, he owns the land, he owns everything. So you serve at the pleasure of the king. So that is the idea around legitimacy. For us, in democratic societies, we elect our leaders, just as whatever president wait. So that's where the representation role comes from. The third and final one is that we have delegated our authority. We have agreed on a social contract. The process is meaningful. So twena twitchers have been a legitimacy. Echahamheru is managing the resources. They manage the resources, but to achieve the social contract. This is what we want. So, where did it turn around that this small group of people abituwahereza authority nubo are more powerful than us? Where did that start? Icho chikatandikira nkai kugira ngo president natukiza man, kugira ngo MP natukiza ki amani, chikatandikira. So the moment you have that shift, aho not in a government, and there's something that you can read about that when government fails. So what happens? So echokubanza, delegated authority. Ichakabiri, social contract. What have we agreed on as a people? Nguchibeni cho chakora chi chakoro. Ichakashatu, legitimacy of the government. And then chakana, the fact that this government, as long as they have legitimacy, they have delegated authority, they can manage the resources. Is tubahire, is twine, oil ya bunyoro, tuko, gold ya bweju, ibanda twinage, ikweta. Gold ya ibanda, to achieve the social contract. So what is happening today? Hata harhoch. So one thing that I always get confused about, no kutwara our leaders as if they are the ones that have the power. Kushanga nubo binechi bine power. Then unfortunately, batuhereza yatu ngara disiti atugura soda, hati ya isi mbobo wa MP ntubukora chi? Ntubumuha. Hati ya jirangu ya isi na justice. Ntukora chi? Ntukamwa. But remember who owns the resources. Neatway. Nambwene HPDM itukunda. Karisa is the national coordinator. Akargaho. HPDM itukunda. You ask yourself, where is the money coming from? Muzei kwa kuira taza nyomba hile sente. Our money. Is it too? Remember, we have delegated the authority to him. Remember, we have given him the resources. So kwa kuja kutugamba ngo sente neze nazihire. Neze buzima. MPs bitu, their job is to legislate. And in that process, tukabe ntubashashwaka sente kache, because we are the owners of that money, right? But they determine how much they are paid. So I'm saying all this kujangu twebuze na mbwen panelists kumulaze kutugambira, do we have actually a legitimate government? Do we have authority and power that we have delegated? Ningashi, we have given up. Because you see there's a difference. No basa ku delegating your power, you still have the power but you have delegated. You can also give up your power and you remain powerless. Then Akasha, do we have a social contract with our leaders? So that's for me about the government. That was the second thing I wanted to talk about. The third one, citizens, the role of citizens. I think just as Ninja, he has heard me say this many times, when we have delegated our power to government, two roles that we play directly in the governance of our affairs. Actually, across the world, citizens bakora ebintu ebi bibiri. Ekyokubanza noku tera karuru, voting. Because that's the process that you identify that small group of people. Your process yoku choosinga your leaders so that they have legitimacy. So if 50 in Uganda, it is 50 plus 1. 50% plus 1 of all legitimate voters. They become a legitimate government. So that is the only first direct way we participate in the governance of our affairs. Ogwa kabiri, the other direct way, it is paying taxes. Tuwanywaka sodaka, I can tell you that 35% of this soda, nichi, no mushoro. Ati nkogoro kunywa waraji. 60%, nichi, no mushoro. Wanywa bia yenkumina, enkumi ibirnabitano nizachi. These are government. Yeah, it would be cheaper, by the way. Because beer has a higher tax rate. Eh? Water. Amaze. They say water is life. But if you buy bottled water, you pay tax. Nambweni wakosa national water. Do you know how much you pay? VAT, 18% of your bill. Service fee. Ezonichi no mushoro. Hata ezo nizo sente zibakozesa bakisha bakatweza bakaja mukabeba tukebaza, tukatero mungaro mwebare. Now, you realize it is no one beats you to pay tax. The good thing in Uganda, most of the tax is indirect tax. So no gushashuro takwenda. Kunkano okorachi? No gushashuro. So I've already said, okushashuro mushoro kontu korachi? Konka process yo kuvotinga yo no shekarema. Since 1986. No, since 1980. So we directly participate in two ways. Paying tax and tuino mushoro nanachi. Actually kokweza kutera karuru nobo kugenda o in a legitimate government you go and sleep. Ebintu byona bitanche kwekora. Ozareba bashomese orwareba kuragurre because you are paying tax. Achadeyeza? Because as a citizen of this land, Golder Karamoja neyawe, Golder Buheju neyoha, Oil Bunyoro neyoha. So go I discovered oil no mubuza. Our forefathers were here on this land. There's another philosophy actually by Reverend Mchimanyajechi about the connection between human beings and their land. So, ebyona nibyachi, each government no jitire in place so that they manage those resources to keep you comfortable, happy to develop. Echin no setting rules. So RDC Mjangu is the head of security so that we don't kill each other. Kutura arwane baturamuri. Wachireba kundi ibe chawe bakorechi bankomi. That's why government is established. So ahabwenki ntushashura gyo mushoro konkatsa kutera karuru tukoraki hati nkuwa NUP yagaruka kani nyantu wotinire RDC. Okay, welcome. So you see that. So we compromise on the most fundamental of our rights, voting, because all power, legitimacy and everything nergankahi akarur kaitu. The role of the citizens tera karuru oyesimbeho, of course atinkamu abesimbireho. Then number 2 ushashureki nambwe ntokuri nkimwe abakutakusha abakwesha romushoro nekintu kibi. You don't have a right to speak what akoraki otakushashura na bible nekigamba actually yeso no akakigaruka muki mbugare keshaya. So why is it kutukwika hakaruru nho tukuremero? I've always joked tabaku abukira gamba nabo when Choma and Guma, who are IMPs, are contesting, or we talk no shangu, we fight. You see, my brother is here, this one. I think Guma ni mfutera. Why? No mitra. Why? Yes, you see, na gamera ngwa Guma ni nkorachi ni nkwitera. But remember, as citizens we come together so that we identify that one person akore decisions on our behalf, managing our resources on our behalf. RDC na kugambira ati nyum 7 I will arrest you, but I have a right to contribute to the process of identifying that person. No sakushanga RDC ogobari ya numurunji kunkabanda bitu aboko itukutura hati ya kuri yatanchire kunjum nuguno mujo wetu nambwe wempare. No, but I hope you get the point I'm trying to make. You see, so what happens? Tunaenda kuendera nacho then kaza chibanda. What happens when a section of citizens no kwa start twena no bwe kuba 10% batanka kufiringa ngu the government is illegitimate? Remember the things I said about the social contract, about legitimacy and managing the resources. Social contract we have agreed. Legitimacy we have identified them. So even when those that are 10%, they should feel like these ones are legitimately in charge. Then Bamba managing our resources, we should feel Nvazkorachi for us, for the benefit of the majority. Just as Yashoma statistics. What happens when the government, some sections of Ugandans feel it is illegitimate? There's a difference between okasinga na nachi or illegitimate. Those are two different things. Because nobasa kunsinga mbere kushemerwa konka kozireki unsinge. So which means you are legitimate. So how about when there is no legitimacy? How about when there is no social contract? Ek'Abany'Ibanda n'ibintu ki ebituru kugira ngu government ekoreki oba ne yesimu oba ne chumuruzo oba ne ya umbrella oba ne ya bus ekoreki etukore beruho ntubimanya. If you ask justice nakugambira ebintu ebyo wambuza nakugambira nebyo bimwe, do we have a social contract? Then the last question is, how about if our resources are not managed for our benefit, but they are mismanaged for the benefit of the few? So what happens? Ekyamheru ni Ibanda. You see, I have had the privilege kujangu, I have traveled across Uganda and other places. Ibanda nenshobera. Kandi I have always talked about this RDC. Ibanda nekorachi nenshobera. Ibanda is one of the few districts in western Uganda where we don't have a common agenda. Nimbasa kuba nimbi hai obuntakutura kuno muno. I get surprised. The chair so namuterana imangu naza kubaria, but he didn't pick my call. No shakwabira you are opposed yagira ngo I don't need you people. But the point is I have gone everywhere. Was a northern Uganda, West Nile. You know West Nile? Across the Nile. At one point they even said it went to end up Republic Yachi. Yes, they wanted a Nile Republic, because they felt like Uganda was not part of them. And they said we have a common agenda. We are not on the national grid. Our roads. So they were clear. Even, by the way, opposition. These MPs that come when they are opposition, they are part of the agenda, the common agenda for West Nile. No opposition, no our government. When they decided that Anita should not go back because she abused their son, Taragarchire. So West Nile has an agenda. But anyway, Western Uganda. What's Bushenyi? Just as you've gone to Bushenyi. Me, I get surprised. Ninza Bushenyi, they have a place. There's a place we sit. LC5, LC3, MPs. We used to Francis to FDC. Okay, I hope he is PFF now. I hope he's PFF. I'm going to NRM. But no mshangaho, ashtaminoa NRM. They are drinking tea. They are political opponents. Conquer the people that host me there. Nichi, all of them. Nebagamba nicho chimwe, nebatensa nicho chimwe. Yorahuri yangu nebeita. I've never had it. Karoro fought with Annette. Kunkai, she resigned, she left. Bam singa yashtama. Annette yakorashi? Yatware chintu. Up to now, there are contestations. One of my friends is contesting. Kunka toka huragangu nenda kuitachi. Mujenzu. They have a common agenda. And in fact, Bushenyi is one of the richest region districts in Western Uganda. Ntungam. Na yetu Western Uganda. Same thing. Common agenda. This young man, my friend, the MP, former MP, youth MP Gerard, bamsinga, bambona abonesa nangwa. Bambona abonesa. Kunkaya na agamba. Nichi? Ntungam. Know how developed they are. So what happened to us? Okay. So those are the questions we have to answer. I've always been concerned. There's something we have to ask. Gamba crime rate in Ibanda. Why? Why do we have a high crime rate? Do you know there are parts of this country, if 2 people were killed in a space of 1 month, there's a crisis. Nabaochi? Ngu kuitum kazwe, nori itum kazwe. In a space of 1 month, there's a crisis. Echaro Nchitama, district Neshtama, leaders in Washtama, they get a solution. And it will never happen again. But for me, I'm on platforms in Impura. Yafa is over twazika. Following day, Yafa twazika. Following day, I'm like, what is happening? Aha. Suicide. Why? Nchiretwach. Nchikorachi? Nchiretwach. So we have to define a common agenda. I am on some of the groups. Unfortunately, I'm very bad with WhatsApp. Kungano mechi kutonganara amazika. I mean, I've never understood how rich people, we are rich people, by the way. Storoboro. Elite. Mushomeri. Nturwana rachi. Tinka chireba. I've never seen it. If you want to gane yo tubiyo byonka. Nyonu kono kureba messages aziri nyingi. That's what happens. Ninga, nanka, ngunahitogu. You know, we are fighting over people we know. Remember the things I defined above. They have no common agenda. Or social contract for us. Certainly illegitimate. Illegitimate in many ways. And finally, they are there on their own. not for us. Aho nyenda ngu tukore poll. How many of you believe that when an MP goes there nana tushakira? Gamba mazim. So why on earth should we hate each other just as? Nguguma be MP. Ninga no hog. Panado. What do we benefit? You get the point? So why don't we define a common agenda and we bring them on the table? So I'll give you what some people have done. Those regions, they decide. Whatever, we have one. Okay, we have like a few top thieves. One of them is the third most powerful person in the country. We kwa kwiba yaza mu region yabo ajya atatu nyo niba nabaleterachi ishomero. And they celebrate, by the way. You see, that's how, for me, I would like us to define our agenda. Ibanda no twendachi. And just as you don't have to have an MP to define that. You sit and say, as the people umuri Ibanda nicho tukwendechi. Ntwenda 1, 2, 3. Hata bandu bona mbaretechi ahameza. MP yija mjenga, okay, yes. Sabon into gender. Kuonka ntwendachi. This is the most important thing. Omugati. Yeah. But on a serious note, we can joke about it, we can play about it. Tukatunguka as a region, tukatunguka as a district, if we take things for granted. Abanyabushenyi tukoba akozire. Nambwe, and I don't know which is the poorest district in that region. No, Buweru. I think it should be Buweru, which is the poorest. No, but by Ibanda standards, they are not poor. But by that region standards, they are poor. Watch it. Service delivery. What if we decided and said, okay, as a region, every family, this is the standard. And we can do it. So, but also finally, economic empowerment. So, nubatuletera sente za PDM, batuja nguneza abo, nubatuhajira, it's okay. We already know that is the thing we started about, which I wanted us to answer. We know that is already compromised. What if we decided that we need to empower ourselves economically? Do you know that it's possible? Nchibaska. Because no matter how many circles turned into banks in Bushenyi, Ebo Circle is becoming a bank. There are so many circles that have become banks. Bushenyi kashomesa abantu through abana babo through circles. Remember, there were strongholds of UPC, NRM, but they have built the region. How many circles do we have? Ishia Neitu. Do we have shares in Ishia? It's the only one, so we need to change. We need to improve that. And then finally, this is the final one, because we are in an election season. So Nanta Gambiro on elections in Zakurwara. 1980. Few people lost an election. I think by all standards, if you do research, they lost an election. Nom district yabo yonka bakayo burunka bibiri ningachi kamwe. And they decided they will kill and take over power. You remember what we talked about, how governments are formed, the point of legitimacy there. We had an election, they contested the results, they killed to get to us in power. And they have done an amazing job. Bakuziriji, bombechira amashomero, amarwaro, roads are working. We thank them for that. We should never at any one time allow a situation where another group of few people will have to make a decision to also go and kill others to get to power. It should never happen. And I know, if you're in Kampala and you say this, they will say, but they have guns. Absolutely. These ones have guns. The UPC government had what? It never stopped the 27 boys from getting 27 guns to kill each other to come here. We don't want that. And I think your Your Wamwetoha Besigye is a president. What is he? Eminent person. He has said it many times. Even Muntu, I think, has said it. We cannot have that situation. And so it's us who are supposed to be making that point. If you see that an RDC is the one causing that, as a community, we have to make a decision. I've always told people, do you know why opposition goes to Bushenyi and they campaign and there's no tear gas? Have you ever seen Bobby Wine beaten in Bushenyi? Never. Do you know why? Those guys decided as a community that these are the principles of our society. The elite in that region made a decision. I am assuming you're the elite of this district. Bitatura hataru arkuria na akora send. So you're the ones who are here. You can make that decision. It is okay for this young man with a red beret to come here and speak and go. That no one from Ibanda should be shot, should be beaten because there's an election. We can make that decision. We can make it. It doesn't matter by the who is in command. We can make it, and it can happen. 2, we can decide. We don't need Museveni. We don't need his son to tell us that we shouldn't beat each other up because of an election. There's a time I went home, I think it was the last election, when someone who I grew up seeing was campaigning for Guma. My whole family, I think, supports him. I don't understand why, but they support him. He told me, I think I was actually going away. Season 2, Ezra Kagama, I can't remember. But he was saying, we can even tema. I stopped. I went and told him, in my own way, if I ever hear that this thing has happened and it is on your hands, I will do everything in my power to make sure you never appear again. So Guma is powerful, right? Of course, he's very powerful. But why would you kill for him? Why? Why would you kill for Choma? Nisho. Like why? So can't we make a decision as a people and say, Mazma, no way, not again shall we beat each other for a politician. I mean, they are supposed to be doing things on our behalf. Today someone posted on a group of my village and said, there's someone who is coming independent. Yes, he's coming independent for... and another person, stupid young man, by the way, I don't know whether he's stupid, but he's a young man who is educated, responded and said, I checked Sisrogwiri. And in my head I was like, okay, surely. Okay, he's old. Surely, why? Even you, so I think we need to change that completely, and also. I know I used those 2 examples because they are close to me, but I know that also women MP, there's an issue there, but we can make a decision, no matter who you support, that in our region, that should never happen. And then we can also make a decision that everyone will go out and vote. Voter turnout rates, there's only one region that returns 90% or 100%. Sometimes cows also vote. We can decide on Ibanda, people come out and do what? Can't be mobilizing because that is the only other way, apart from paying taxes, that we directly participate in the governance of affairs. So what did I think I wanted to talk about? The first one is really thank you for this, the fireplace. Keep the tradition. Let's keep doing it. In fact, so people can come and drink tea and they don't have to pay for themselves. The second thing, the origin of government. Government, we make it. They have to have a social contract. They have to have legitimacy. They have to manage resources on our behalf, not for their own behalf. And then finally, the role of the citizens, I think that one we all knew. But just to emphasize, we vote, we pay taxes. We pay taxes very well, no one is contesting, but voting has always become a problem. And we can make a decision to change that. And then finally, ibanda twine kwegaruka mukabantu. We don't need leaders to help us on this one because they are always interested in their own things. So we need to define an agenda for ourselves and follow it. Thank you very much.
Mutero bugaro ubundi wewale Chris kandi that was a wonderful beginning kandi Elias wewale kutaha motyo na Joshua all the way from the land of Guma and Choma konka Elias ariyo nabatwara ekintu so at now we have a bigger picture. Actually, with this keynote discussion, it projects where we shall be in some months, years to come as this forum. Konka we shall be discussing more outside the fireplace. Okutua koleche chintu chikaba sustained, chikaba self-supporting, chikaba self-owned, nkitu Abany'Ibanda. Kandi tukachipushinga to our entire lifetime. Wa PFF ya agenda yazai konka Patricia webale kwiza obutu ganira tukutandika twatukulinzire kandi we shall go straight ansere muno yana akurato twaza kwakira Patricia agambe kara heze akazindara akawa PFF then twakirwe omuzwekero wa president agiro kuyasobora ensonga ezitwantugambo konka mwebale kwiza kandi Edwin is one of our key strategies 7 tukubantu ganira ona akorom background korangu to identify different topics eziri kukwata nsonga ezenezi PFF nubenda ngobe niyo wakorataho so kazindara kakabiri karahi nani nyenda bakatware bakahe wa PFF atujera nsonga naho twarga a bigger picture arebe nsonga okwakuzireba omuri Ibanda ezitwagambo twanzura topic egi kandi we nkameya azinira amanu go kuzumaraho ora ninga Abany'Ibanda twakine manu ntuzaguma muri yecho. Over to you, Mr. Anselm.
Webare moderator Mwami Justus nyenda kutwara umugisho gusima keynote speaker waturetera indeed yaba speaker murunje munonga ubwirangumire nyenda kuza kurukwiho buyatandika kanaronda kutandikira kusigembozi yenunje habura semuja nakira kuba natuganira semuja Uganda atugira ati parliament hariho umuntu ari kwata kazindaro wa wanenda kwimuka kwekora mugiro tatkambanze nsohorogwa benaheza akwa numanyangwe byakuzagamba so umusiza yagamba twabana tugamba ahanshonga tuzagamba nshonga ya service delivery omwihango then na corruption ningashi oburubwenguzi yoniza kutandikira aha service delivery twena ntukimanya ngo buhereza bwa government aha muntu waburijo noho rukushanga nk'emihanda noho rukushanga nk'amizi noho rukushanga amashanyarazi ukashanga amashomero ukashanga amarwariro n'ibindi mwene byo muntu waburije atakubasa kwekorera konka barukurundana sente bakazaha government ko mushamukoro kuyagamba ekaba niyo yatukorra aha bintebyo so okureta service delivery ningasho kureta obuhereza aha muntu waburijo twena ntukimanya ngo nikibani cyetengesa sente kandi sente government nekira kuziha omu bintu ningiranka bishatu neziha goods and services ahandi ziha omusoro so waza kwetegereza setup ya government yitu bashanga ngo ine system yo kwanza kundana sente omuroko government si no mu central government zona tukazisindika Kampala then mucheza kusindika Kampala atazarakankahi ahamwa burijo kuko kunaga amaseze rukuri waza mu ihanga gito baguzi na services twiriha so poko zategerezo shangango ebintu etwakubire mbi hasente nkihanga itugine ko rukuza kushanga ushangango wabona tumera state of the nation's address inga bakutushomera budget batugambira GDP abanyagano birabagiga sente tuza kurundana sente turundane bashoma officers bazikaho koka echo kutarakweba no kugira ngo sente nyinji ezituru kutasya nkihanga niziba zitari sente zihanga zitari sente z'abanyagano okora kushanga omu banks ezitinu nkihanga banka commercial banks bazire za sako sente zibakoresa bona nabaziho mu commercial banks so ushanga commercial banks ni banks kurenga 25 onko muri yezo banki 3 zonka zo za Uganda so cyo kumisangu kuba kweza kwa GDP bakwata sente za banka ya Kenya bakwata sente za banka za Tanzania na banka za Harabu zo bazikwata bazibara Uganda bwanyu mu mwaka bari bank sabo kugira ngo business banka z'abantu kufuna musende bakifuna amagoba gabo bagatwara omahanga gabo hamwe Uganda ho bizese bakusharaho percent cyangwa interest yawe tero kusigara mu ihanga mwika kororgudu oshanga nakabanize nyinshi ezino zitwine nka hati hari abantu ba DSTV oshanga DSTV ni asa South Africa oshanga Star Times ya Beijing China oshanga azamu abana azamu oshanga ni Tanzania zuku ne ya sese kuma sangu iyo ashoka no kashashara ndabimira abantu sente zine kihanga kuka okashishinga mwazi akasente kashohora hira atokiza kugira tubareba omutara ta government bashanga batine sente ezirumu ngiziha bakora amahanda gwanyu bakora hibaro ryanyu n'ishomero ryanyu hata nyuma yabaria betongo bamarera mira zabaiza kutareza Somalia DSTV batareza South Africa na bakaba zabaheru hatiyo kayibanda musira mutichi mwine ahagara muzankahi muzomurumisi okura uranga hati ex bank etire sese kuri muto mukambara kuba kusindika basindika zo conditions nizo kwendo kukazi kuba abachayina hatoshanga akampani ya Uganda yakubirene kwa sente zikagara umari Uganda zikaganze torora Uganda zikagara shoro gukakamya gukija gakora mu Uganda hatuwa machayina zikuhereza ukoresha guto kuba bakozi be bagaragaza sente kahi China hatoshanga twaguma umusao kugirango na hakushanga habo bereza nuguma kahi kumiseka kabaraburi kiro guto aho ivazo wahamba roti daha bakora guto onko ibanda ushanga atine kiriyo so hata hamero government yitu kache akeretera ka service delivery yeka chake kwetera ngo hereza ushaka na yakareta kero kora business habo kwa kutegereza ombiyane no mu Uganda twine service delivery twine government businesses nshaka kurera ushanga ndakugira ngo ntombora ya katiri y'amashanyarazi mukaga amashanyarazi ushanga ngahi umutawuni aho kumenya ngo umutawuni no baraga kose nonga government afasha akasente then bakwata kugira business bata ngamashanyarazi kaga for example ushanga unit ene amashanyarazi iri kubahigo kwa ngo bahigo ushanga buri kwezi bagaraka bakanga service fee $45 kugira ngo wabahinde obere barbu yoka bamara mezinkana ukakatire kushashora hatko kushashora utashora banga obere kunya bashora banga obere hende bashora banga mpako hitire bagari yemina na bitaro zabo zameze ana ubona kwitira mukaho ikumisha zawe ninge kunyana ikubano hembe okabiri so abo ohereza bwisha kukabera government kuleta kuextractinga mchi akasema cyo muri diro mizi cyangwa yuri ya mizi ni gwimita kuri mutawuni kuko 15 gamero bachi uzitwara so ohereza bwawe obudese zo ngira kasinde kahiguru bachigaraka kuletera bagaraka byose irachi sendizini so hata yoshanga hata muri kubyanga bingi especially kumushambo kuyagamba ibyo bindi bitabisharaho ari bara tuchumya bitabisharaho hata basi kugirango leta ngo hereza ndagabaza kubera nguye bubururu ngaho kwibwira bakuburu naboneke gasho bucyaro cyari bwira uburu guto bashara bibilere konka dore bamari bachi ari baguriye mu cyaro cyane so ataba service delivery umihari bitu nishikire ndurana sente uko shangizo kutukora zitaro then ekipaka kapangira ekizo noza drop oshanga sente nyinshi ezakuriye zikora ikabanya Uganda zikuya umbakozi ba government hafasha tugihanga cye Uganda ine population ekuye bara abadi ne turi sesa sekuye ezibiri abantu 45 yabaze kwa bakagana na mwenda izo bangwa turi muri elections zabana miliyoni za 5 muri kugenda 5 hafashanga itobanye Uganda miliyoni 5 ku members wa parliament bitano na hafasha na amashaza gani turiyo tuza kugendera abamemba za parliament rukaga hati yobuza akasiga Uganda no bazo kwinira abamemba ba parliament bakora mu ngereza so bitine bi ndageze n'iki kandi namugasha hati wabuza otimwe n'umero wa parliament wa municipality iki cyari exact zo parliament cyo bangu na cyangwa cyagase muturi bana tuzagaswe wa karanda ko mu Uganda ni cyagase wa bujwa buru bujyo no cyukura hati yobuza abundi bije match so abantu natano na abantu barafati umukwa 5 ukana baheza miliyoni 200 zo kurambuka baheza miliyoni 10 unezo kurera mu cyucu akagwa sipisi yo kufingura Kampala iyo kigaho ushaka baheza umushara guruka miliyoni 5 abo nabo kire instance bakutunana na obana kinana no kinana bari step na instance districts yanchana kagwa mashini 5 zimwe mu geziri so ushanga district ma RD babiri bakikuwacha ari sai motoka deputy motoka nizira masha nizira service obusafi ya government kushana kamotoka ya distance ukajitwara hapo kwa sengu akadosa yusi cyane cyafu kitraka cyane bagurisya ahiba promotion ro kwitano kuzosba mu rwego kumikano hano gacona kisa ubere twashoza abakisiya kuko kitwara hari yose ya humuro ese cyane twara bakoze humuro rwego mitano bakora expenditure impala nane tano imitwaro anamira mitano umuziteke kai afite mu so hari bine expenditure mpumnonga ukurigira ayihana yito obe harabona gamba yikapira n'ibihongore n'ubu ari bamajije kuko bakoze byinshi bakazoruvinjira mu mu system ushaka n'ikitongore ndabitana twa millions na millions n'ikitongore kire beti ya billion kazinga hata electronic be active unakabana kuko mwaka batigeze budget ari tini mu biryawo ndebo ito hanso n'santu mushakuriya namba bakiri fyaru jamwe wari kubishika umuntu umanya gwe cyane kugira ngo bagamba kusomanya cyane imeke cyangwa mu agenda ninga mu egenerwa byanyu mu kwenda kutuma niba wapana mu kwenda kutuma mera ushanga iro akabihanga hatumirizwa n'aberezi ino kwenda uberezi mu gihe yaramba yakubakora hatibangura cyikoze kigwi niba kwira mu ndira ky'Abany'Ibanda ezubukito guto ezubukito government firo bamara para kimwe kitano nari mu twine minister ya mutwana kuru mu cyo mbwe government kuri ABC ifite tugenda ashambira utakoresha ndabyine
omukuru answer
sebo
nanyera urugiza no hati n'isho zawe force abahokereza teze bakarura kuri wenu nkibanda nashobora kugamba uhereza umutezo w'akaguru aseme ko kureba ngo ahubwo wayige itubega ngo tusasoro musoro kandi bakati akaru twaje ngo musoro gwino gusasora organize akaguru kuko no buzozi mwene umutezo w'akaguru wawe ngo munyibanda akore kureba ngo uhereza yabufuna
bari mnonga cyo kubanza okufuna buhereza kabire ikiteka okere biteka iwe oyi tubuhereza wabuye no shoborozi umutezo w'akaguru ni no shoborozi aha muntu aruza kwembera kongo shoborozo ko no bukira wabanye umutime titerenge ibire ndibanda na mwana no yangibire wakana no simbo utakwere discipline yona kugira ngo umuntu akoze ngo ari nesho ngaza babasaga baniwe nibaza kureba oyinesete niyo hari hayibire ndi ahira mwe abiri kareba turi nifa bentera nawe kumana yaje mari abahimi twari tano umuntu akambuza ngo hona nevuga rubaga mitware tano yonka azireba zakora ki zababusha nizo kubaba umuntu nabikora tinawe kabisa imbere handi yemwe akabya kuhereza yimwe akayiri bari akanonga nyuma yazi atwazire ya miliyoni so nagiye kwa tumwe bagambiye kabajanti uri bakaruru nebinga interview ito tija onishoganya nimba ni mwatuhuza ebimurwera indero byanyu mwari kugira ko twavuga mu gihari na mu rwera mutereza karuru kunkabane cyatangaza atwo kushika umucanga abantu bagirana kushobozamo akasente haza akasente akora baheza ubanza kuhereza sente ndani misa mwaza umutransaction nakohereza sente iyo bandeza karuru no batanga ubushobozi no batanga no ito ni kwa rero ubushobozi bwaci bwito bakunda kuhereza akasente hatakarura ko rukumva tushikura ngo bakampa ngo wakiza ubushobozi bwawe no babu na kwa sente bangu ubushobozi nabwo cyo baza kumva ubushobozi bwawe none nabwo isa kuri iwe rukumbanje akubye cyawe nkachikweza so okugira ngo twemere unja abantu batekubanza batereza cye ubushobozi bwabo kugira ngo nyinshi kare umuhanda kugurafi ayi kubita kumire okutereza umuhanda ahashifire kuko mpera kwise wandro aho bachifire nimbaza kuzi bantu majyanye yaje kandi utereza urushi sebo nari nyabo aruka bakampi ikakakubwaho yakaguze iyo ndetse n'ubushobozi waza kureka akarura kasete tubaza kureka akarura kasaburi ibintu tubaza kutereza ahubwo bano bwende zuwenga na kukitinsa kuko mutana abanyati orengo ngo yatu bakatera orengo mu rumwe tujyaho kiganiro ariho muntu mwakabize kurushaho ano bwa kumo bibiro bitanu hati mu buzangambi cyaje cyo kumasi nato rwabara 10 atabanje n'abageze nabitanu ateze mwibinizara uko kwagaba cyaro akabara 10 no nibaza kusharra ho bari tuturkwija kubasa kugira umwebembezi ayine cyaro kubasa kutuyamba so ndukuhendera itwenke cyanga tugire bigenderwa tumanyangu ekisanje cyo kiriyo ni kije ito kigenderwa kitu ni A B C D kandi turabire omu opinion leaders akwanda tutera hansi bagambere ebigenderwa bito kora abari obushomesa kora abari father kora reverend kora abari sheikh mwambe numanya ko muri ngoro mu bashinga umbateze banya karuru nanye kuna cyo ndukushaka karuru mugirangu ite Kibanda municipality ekizubukitu kitwire cyurute ekizubukitu twire ryorugudo ekizubukitu gatwire ganizi ekizubukitu gatwire amashirazi mwene sabo yeka kwendende ne patalise tuta kurengwe bizigitari hawo hata mahajana hari yecho umana yaze kiciriza batume then kukira kureme bule kugira kurigira twaragi sebo nari tubyokoze nana hata tafensa yokoma kuteka harubaju nabari besimbira batandika ko sotinga aha makwe kuri leta yine cyaro kubasa kubwaho arunage n'ingakare ukamene hati omuntu nateka center haho aturazirihesha herukomera azira arekiranda zirakaninga basa atezi kandida kabasa so mbenu ibintu byose bitwire tubara kubikoreho nangariye tuza kurambuza kujo nisho bene cyashonye ukendera cyakupsheshi naco kiraka kwate no kutera ruru omwandi sasi byatwe na turiseremu bakagirango umutamba rero bagasete za zero none narage habashoje bagenda twakira hasitezo taro zero nemwe abarikuba sakuzantu bafamere ko baro bagera bakabakira rase abakora byangu byose bana bagenda batina kamagara mutex ndiya bafamere batuma mwinga kumuru kugenda no masukuzana sere mustoyeza so echaro abagezi mu byangu umfamere ya Sasika yo mu umfamere ya Ekiteramo ndijo umfamere ya Patricia Pierre ndijo kugira ngo babarukuruga umfamere za kushana ndetse twarakire kwikizana ukutwiba so iyo yiturukwa tukata abantu bafende barubwama naje nakoresha bikishana hino bahaba nabaje nakutira tubashishe ushanga iyi mapezi bari kubira avuka ibindi haje babaye ni kuriba ndi kugira wati rindu onka bashaka bari kuriba abakubira baterendu bona bakwikizana bayenda bisa ikintu cy'agenda ndi ahifaha ntera misarata bakansa bakajya kwishyura muri meya wabo abisho bitatu gamba
iragura mu naga
bayenda mwibicinge niso babamyeho urabona kidera mutoki barudari motion yuko mwibicinga aho kugira ngo abaje mu buyo yadira mustangaho bakabira ariko yari opposition barasabira mu mani ibyo gabumi ibyo to kanso hageje kare mu kozeti kimwe bona bakabana buyo yadira kitangaho musina bamasa ko kama barabona mbere ibyo kozero mani yadira kama bandi so mu 6 ni teba mega okanya ndi kintu kuhereza mu gestasi abo ni bari district nete amamyana kintu kuri what they because gaba opposition uko uranimka bas obatine bira obatine matara obatine ngombe obatine basi obatine shaka kumenya obera batamutara bwaseze basi so mwenye nsereze yaba basinyaza kutamu irimo busuzi ne basi mutembera ebibira nimse namwe yo mesare timpediri yinyi
umuterenga za asemu akira shade meya hadina ya kahuta wino musaya nagamba tufamere mwe nanyo ndo family kuna family ya basi yes so asemu bale kandi kushinga konka ewe mwiza kwandika kose kutuganire asenga gina ibanda we can call it basi manifesto manifesto y'Abany'Ibanda something like that tw'Abany'Ibanda ebintu bite tuseme abantu ganiro twamye twena byose kwa period NB so we can get maybe this coming month when we are tutandika setting agenda ng'Abany'Ibanda tukwe so za kuchunga tuye konka Patricia na tutakigara disi kunyo cyake na ni Patricia ubanta twaganira abantu bakora akazi ndimo basanga employee community tuna yakoza mu government bo bakashura ubwo government basanga abaganda ko government association bayomba ni petition ya ngobeza bangere so ywe mukwawo mbi Umuny'Ibanda otekateka mu Abany'Ibanda tumekora kugira ngo artist ibintu byose manguzi ibintu byo kubuhereza twabicereza kandi bitambo maraho ywe Umuny'Uganda ko Umuny'Ibanda ndeka ko kubugiye ko si bamwe mu Abany'Ibanda machazi abamwe nsanga cyo kwaro ywe no weba ngwito tumekora Abany'Ibanda kandi pata yo unase yes
bari mu ambassadors ko bagamire banyeta Kenya Patricia Ayamba anyway I think I am wrong Ayamba was made the name so my name is Kenya Patricia is brother ya Wanimbi under the topic UP looking at the topic we are talking about service delivery. We have first break those 2 to 1. Service delivery we have of course it is government manya mizi we have jazi nguto healthcare and nobody of course government has to pay for we hima bitu then the delivery is bringing otai okawisi abantu baburijo okurete ngo kazi abantu bitu baburijo nguto zikabazo kora muzeti chimani oketa mizi wakisi baburijo leta mashanyarazi ogaleta okagisi mtu baburijo that is service delivery so wabitabiona katika corruption of course me and my understanding the corruption has hindered our service delivery. Let's give an example of roads. Government here is a same to let us give this example of Ibanda Road. Yeah, here's like 100 kilometers. Over here's away when I don't think we'll do that 100 kilometers. They will definitely chop it to 80 or 70. After chopping, the road will not come as planned. The sugar to the potholes knows the neighbor knows and when it's on taxi. Up to here. So that is corruption has hindered our service delivery. So even in Amaran, look at our healthcare. We're supposed to be having hospitals everywhere, even here in Uganda. I'm so surprised we have a far hospital. Very surprised. We have a government is part of the government. So that is what we other shanga waje mu rwaro wayiturwe wawe tahari mu bazi waza ningo mbere wakumkoraho no kaza wa mhituga no kaza waheza nase tugana ndebera mwana ngwataramu I don't know that service is supposed to be free or we pay for it in the long run. So that is what I'm saying. Corruption has hindered our service delivery. So what are we going to do to reduce the corruption? Yani jango to opting a method ya China wakwator corrupti majuruku wakora mumurum. That is the only way to reduce on corruption because waguma to mbaherezo muntu ibere baby tengene na mwana yimiride. That's why we are here. Chokurebera nguto zitu zitarije, chokurebera amaruharo gitu gatari mu mubazi, chokurebera amizi gatari mu byaro, chokureba amashanyarazi gatari mu byaro. And yet we are giving you people money. So I think that is how I can conclude. Thank
so
you so
before
much.
you conclude izonkani nganira no muntu omwari ari among the people we have here konka tukasanga ngu kuba kwa advertising harumo for example Umuny'Uganda natera nko muntu wakumanya mbuza ati bishikani omanyo ba district ati kanyine cha miliyoni 5 zanja ugumura mutinka gufuna tubaka applyingire for a job tine kiyatireyo ariyo nabuza ati nyine sente kakuba naza kusaba contract omuntu wa buriijo noba
ebyo bigenze mbiwaho finally nukureba twin institutions ziri in place na governments ziri in place. Ebyo byona nibibaho kugira ngo to changing the other narrative ebyo bunyakare kubyebere konka ndisaha eje nindeba ngo tukibyetenga bimwe wade tukubasa kubinagira tukabinaga inyuma akuba icyanga kitu kiriyo nsisikara abo kugira ngo abakuru barime nabo kukiriza imyuga yabo kugarura Ekiteramo nk'ebiso Ekiteramo nk'icyabantu bonje kitambire se cyo kubanza nk'Ibanda district niza kutandukana n'ikintu cya agenda usanga obwebe district twinemu elders forum eba negorra byingi ebikuba bishobere omucanga upcoming leaders abo kuba bizire ubundi bwo kutegwa ebyingi elders mbasitamanka bagira ebashobora so nubwo kureba imyanya nkaza Bushenyi no model districts mu western region obwebembezo bwo n'ubukuru munonga akobezo forums na nebiteramo nkebi nibiyamba district kufuna mahanda ogwesemeye kuba netoramo konka narrative egenze necenge nehinduka hati man itese man community ekina atumunda nico cyanje ebya Edwin Karema manyo habitu buyine kakwati muntu nakoreka mino konko munda n'impiri yenyini reto papuro bambe mwizi kunza kutambira mwana wabikara binaga ubundi Kampala beza nkabusigara binaga mu Kasasiro cywa kityo so oreba ngo ebizibu nibiteka kuguma mbikozo go muntu naguma birire cweka ekizibu abo kugira ngo cyona cyayigamira umwebembezi abo kugira ngo twina bebembezi abaro kuri senda zabo ubundi abatafuteka tekire bicweka nangwa atibanda yonga bikoze ikiganije ya rivo yanga ryo so byona nibigarikira bebembezi omubunyakari abantu bobunyakari obunakobo the strong no bayi bafune cyo bayi bana benda at the expense of the weak and this narrative is still withstanding nesa hejo inamani no wakufune cyakwenda amana nagafunata omukwereza sente ebituga nebindi nabandi nibarya babarya sente bakunkumura empire na skata bata aguruza kabanza nkaka nubukusanga Ekiteramo gwangu muri Ibanda ngomu ebintu nkebya kwandata kinini yaza option akubedi nobwero hongo reverana nakutusaba ninga faza omuntu naikare mero ubundo sanga nakahunga kabura yena kamugwa arangwinsi yamuremera so orangu byona nibigarikira bibembezi bitu tureke kufuna bebembezi abari kunywa miziga rwenzori then to tukaba bateze bengaro twine kumekinga shuwa ngo twafuna obwebembezi omucanga kitu okubasa kutuma umuntu nangwa nubwo nonya rwenzori deko uyu no kisori kikwanyuka akwasipi ayihangane muhurzani so nekintu cyakabimunonga bwana justice usanga ngo uryo mwebembezi usubire suit abo ryo no addressinga batire empari byapanka munana no sangu fashion nekintu cyakabimunonga ekiri kumanyisa ngo you have not caused any transformation amagaragabo na livelihood yabo kandi iwe nkano tinde cyo yongireho so abantu babutosha service delivery itubwo twambanye iki twenda umwebembezi witu hati nubuna kubwo bururu abebembezi gozinto baronda konke byango kubikubabiri nuko kubikuguma biri emyaka 5 cyangwa kucyabekero bano wodi ubano muruka ubane gombo ubano municipality ubane stenkeji okweri nuko kweri kandi abebembeze myaka 5 tubine ba members ba parliament ba LC5 ba mayors bendembo ba women members ba parliament hato yebuza ikizibu niki echo mwenche gari cyo bwebembeze president Museveni akizigamba ahabebembeze ngo abebembeze nabwo korarambanywa n'abantu enkera batakuboreka mahanda kitumirensi yaterwa amahungu because omwebembeze no wayireka abantu mahanda gokorabamo gokutoramo mwensi kwabe oriyo ndemya ebisanja ati nonda bitano banonda bishatu echo hinduyeho niki aba basize kufuna emirimo mu district yawe bono bangahi ekindi bono bargo mu district ejo yenyini n'Abany'Ibanda bawe n'Abanyabushenyi bawe n'Abanyakasese bawe ninga abaheru no bafunire mu cyango kusinga bo wawe ekikumanyisa ngo you are still on bomb esayuna ndamba iteka iki so abebeza abo kupressinga abantu on the wars time will come people will fight back we have to kandi ubumwe obwebezo ubumwe manyangu service delivery no bwebezo nakochundiye yaringire siyona abibemeza mu rumo mahanga no gukora abara RDC iriye mu ndafuna miliyoni umuntu n'imito 98 government ne meeting cy'isona government ya Uganda yashika yese kufuna yo ba 9 nyundi biza mu RDC mu asinga gafuna zika 8 musisa ko bakazanga so atugakoza chifu chifa kali ari muri kabagina na atibatu ko mbere nasaba tubita ko kutangaza kazinti nakaba afuna abantu bita amashibashi cyabo okubasi kufuna umwebembezi kuyabeyiza kahiko umwanya ne member wa parliament ito abantu babutosha obaturi abanyibando masaza gitu mutitu ayo kumashikanye wamanyishwe ndo mwebezi witu bantu usanga bari yo etika kwa service delivery bari ambambere nyine mukabiri bari asubira kwiyambi usanga ngutinisi zibu abana yo sinjira kumeno wona rezo izari namurya ico mutayire sense na agenda kwebizo na babe yari rizoberi yari ngiro so tire bantu duteka uronga bateza bakaru unywana waje wari gica yagambo ko banza kugira social control abebembezi tense nabo omyaka 5 control kuzina bya ibaratko abumezi nayo nabirende muri barum atsi tamutecha kusaba kamushikirizineho so kantu uya bakubera muri bibero umuntu ngo yima so atoreba ngo twine ikizibu cyangwa umuntu umuntu nabatama ka mubunda kukurungira abantu ato umwe naze bero tonga ndo menasi atora ngo twine amizi barasta ayo ngutu nuzira sta nguru rwakabongo reba abantu yakizuna mwishinjiro kuyanga kuvura kama tabasikanira kada kari kiguru yibo sabuni yibo bunyobwa yibo buchori yaye kukura rusfa yabe kizubu no mubebembezi bitu omunsomu rusfa kuba mbinjo mwiguri yatanga kuzerero munsomu yazera omukuzerera nazerero mbebembezi omurumo naguheza abantu 8 omu district abantu 8 buri muntu namutera kahunga ka miliyoni 3 atogo mwana ko wa miliyoni 3 mazima na indobwa obwo kuma store yemfuka nkezi ninga sarasa nkezi so obani kizongo mweno ko mwana wa miliyoni 3 yaguze kibanza ubwo barayeta sarasa ragisiga mu store yegombora burkantu nana akaguza kwarera kasente ke kakoreki kagarkeho so ore yangu obusuma na ba rusfa abebembezi bari bakozesebwa rusfa omunsomu akuba obusuma bugira higuru munonga omuntu wabutosa yasigara ryo mutezi wengaro kandi cyone kigari cha central government usanga central government na mukuru wiyanga tabakora kandi abebembezi nibingi none uranagira ataba MP bagendo wa 5 rukaga konkopa kugendera 5 rukaga is there value additional value yarubo maba MPs mbabasa ko bari 50 ningigana bino mugaso we MP wawe waza kureba mu parameters za score card prina rumbu chiko na parliament we aragambere dayina binaja tunda ibituyo tugezeho zagiye kujati akari za cyankwanze nagabura cyayi nashoye mugenzi we chikopo cyayi ngo baryo mbatuganira mbatenzi yanga ati orangu twine kizibu cyango omuntu ari yakwiringise bunaho oronda ecyako yongeye na cyanga kikubura so abebembezi twine ku abantu babutosa tumechi tukwendo mbebembezi bitu omwebembezi kari za MP yahezo omupira ngo gweminyeto yatwatara ono social capital na indangwe bitayinsi zitu ziyendo misho konko ko mupira chikumanyisangu yakora abantu nibaterenga rozi barakanko bawo ngo empira manana kani imagine empira manana omuntu ari motivated are facilitated kugira ngo atravasing isaza ryona namazu tambaga bahereza arambure ntekateka zemyoga PDM abantu program zabo groups zabo babaze kwikobereza bwe sente za government baba transform livelihood zabo za changinga konko biza akazika ka emitoro 50 akarabu mu trading center akagure bidoma bya tontonka 8 akabimara bakanyo waraji mbaterenga ro bararamba mwisongora busese honarebo hariya wagenda atahuko na nondi zo mwebembezi nukoko so ebikwamparinga service delivery nibinje munonga bwana justice konka abantu babutosha abanya Uganda twinde kumanyisi kubantu endo mbebembezi bitu
mukuru RDC turyombwire bwa karuru kandi ngo kutwaganira twagira ngo umunya Uganda umurumo gw'amano go ino mugabo no kutera karuru konka obuye kubukwika among the reasons why Ugandans usanga baba affected mu gukora decision no kujya obumwe office za RDC obumwe nazo be involved usanga nimwe mukutandika kutera za kiboko nimwe mukuza side mukatandika kuhagera sa mu sides usanga umuntu no bwakubana yenda kuhagera umuntu ora mwisi obuhereza ataraze kugoya akahunga no bura rufu konga taine cyara akora abo kugira ngo natina RDC maybe atamuteganisa ninga akamutera kiboko so iwe of course no wasabota kubikora ebyo konka information yo kubasa kurabera ho kuhameza abanyayuganda kugira ngo process ejinani ndondo muntu orampo buhereza ataze kuta sparufu akaza kuronda chip popularity atarampereze chinkwenda ng'Abany'Ibanda kutwenda kusetting agenda Abany'Uganda no Abany'Ibanda no bahamiza otansonga ekindi Ibanda twine kizibu kyogera ngwitwe twine elders forum ba elders abakwe baruho bakasavinga kuba uza retiringa abamwe tubakwenda retiringa wenda bategeka emyaka 2-3 bagume mba dividing abantu mpaka bagenzi rwanya nyanteze abandi akuba bagira mu retirement bagaruka baza baba mbategeka osanga no dividing according to religions, according to this region, according to this constituency. So because of that Ibanda twine elders forum abantu are going to respecting abari yo musumoro wars no barwana obuntu buke trivial. So you are one of our exports now exporting okwesa yona ntuiza kuya we can even launch you to another big agenda what kwataji konka iwe nkomuntu twirombi bintu ebyo. How do you think ngwibanda ntubasa creating that forum yoku negotiating nito tuka kuturasitame twa designing agenda yitu does want to etaga a forum where we can sustainably achieve those things. So you know take at tukakora chikurangu twa creating that forum ya elders basa batari bakuru myaka kuonka what are your thoughts about that, if anything maybe ne basa beri yotawujimanya nayo jitugambere
wewe bwana Justice nyoni ntekateka ngu eji elders forum ninga nobwe kubeta elders forum konka forum nkeji Ekiteramo nkeji ntyo basa kukiya mu forum azebe yo mugaso ebe yo kumana determining abebimbizo setting agenda echo kubanza mwine kubano mumanya meya Ekiteramo nkamu mwete meya ntwendeke na neki member wa parliament ntwendeke na neki kandi twasetting agenda umuntu gwe narabamu akubibande cyetu millionaire abo mbizu binje neri billionaire abamu a small group, a small cocoon of people na bastama kamparo mu gardens bagotomera za wine za Johnson hati badeterminingira ki echanga pana Ibanda nos abantu no waraji ekyaro X ninga Z nicho cyamina agamba sinjira 10 ninga 5 ninga kagongo ninga kashangura ninga nkai konka kutukuba twinirira karumwe nk'Abany'Ibanda tukamanya ngu omwebembezi witu ntumwenda mweki nintekateka ngu ebyo kuyoninga no kumiyandaringa no gumantwara lamentations intutonzya tebikuza kubaho akomwebembezi nendaga nitu akozere nawe kandi twinde gumantu assessing parameters zobahereza bwe zahikai okwasesinga parliament azobahereza bwenka meya nka member wa parliament ne buri kwezi kugumantu ko Ekiteramo nkechi member wa parliament katwatensize ki wahikankai kanosane kikoremere mwene tukoreki hati itwe Ekiteramo cyonka cyabanchironda abebembezi abara fronting agenda yitu nk'Abany'Ibanda tukafuna ekiturukwetenga ekindi abantu atuko number 1 mu constitution yihanga nje n'onkuru yihanga nehereza abantu amani kuronda omwebembezi wabo bekundiri konko omwebembezi wabo bekundire babo kugira ngo omwebembezi mbako mufuno mukunywa bwaraji bisi Elias mazima twakunyo cyo mwitajo mu yiwagenda kasi wagenda yoni wamureta so ato oyangu twine kizibu cyangu munonga owahe sente nyingi munonga waguremena nase bidoma bya tonto ogono kureba nko mukozi emyaka 5 wasesinga parliament azobereza muri Ibanda ureba ngo tuburuho hato yebuza abana bo kuyanika motoka oye no change cyatuyambaki ondiza yinda yigura itiyansa sandaje gwitaka ngo mukama nico cyakunzeri atsuranga cyakunzeri ningo mwe no budoma mbaburumu so oreba ngo twatinde forum nkeje ninga agenda nkeje omwe ranga ntubantu mubehera abantu nito twine kumanyo mwebembezo kubasa kwa Justice nukuwa okubasa kwa Kamagara nukuwa okubasa kwa Numand Junior nukuwa okubasa kwa Ansere Mu nukuwa river on political parties because ebigombe biziri kandi ebigombe nayo mbya bine set agenda yabyo konka the end of the day ntubantu wendo mwebembezi no basa kubo ino mwebembezi aryo wowe apate yawe konka n'ikifobsa parliament yatira umugono wariyo nagona bugona nawuna bubuna ati at the end of the day bana no kugiro otubwezuka batwara amasanyarazi byaro byo nabakabuzi y'amasanyarazi intekateka ya rural electrification program ekakira otitu ibanda kasangura bisese kizongo otito amasanyarazi katagine kasatiwe okanyoma rwo musiza waragiye wajume na nanse wajinyu wabumwesongore byesongoro ati akagenda yazagaza famu yeye emenanansi yawe yagihire hariya akwakaguze kizimbi cyembarara hoyima so tuine kumanya nomwebembezi kiyarka amagara a vibrant confident nabasa kwemera parliament o municipality ngomu abase ku tema budget najetejiza yo budget najimanya yo nama kujisoma ekingereza kirimo nakukinterpretinga cyetegeza amanyati bamba tusabe ekingu tsindike feedback mu central government ninga no kurempare tukasibe bikaro amakoti speech zikagamba arufu bakatenga zikabaraka nko bango mukuru yagamba so tuine kweteka abanyibanda turgo mu ruzyo ararete sente muzigotomere na nabashenye nankayi echamani because bwana justice a generative yesente ntubasa kugirura nk'abanyibanda akwa tuwarebera ama district sagamwe gari kuferdinga bebembezi kandi batakoze sena sente abo kugira ngo abantu bine set agenda bonu bamanye cyo barikwenda muri justice kuyababaze kupushinga agenda ya Marian Foundation akaskiringe minyeto abana bakafuna emirumo akarobinge barani akakora ABCD bamwe bakafuna emirumo employment problem akaje ya solvinga hati ogo no jangu wamwe sigano bwebembezi obahango takabasa kusolvinga cyango tukafuna mu cyango so konke chamani nanka yarabo mu trading center hata abantu akaruba yitekatekere honarebo karisire gari hone giti miliyoni nkarushanju miliyoni usanze mparo gitiye byapa manana bagaga horo gitiye byapa bya supa na rugabe naki ati omukata yo nakahunga omukazi wakwika umuterempa atahe ati cyakuyamba ki emotoka ne yo mukazi we nabana bi so ore yangu tuakamanya icyo gukora
wari munongo bwaru bwa RDC ya weware omukuru RDC kandi ntuzaguma tukumanyise aho kaburi kwezi ntubantu tuganire kiganire ki konka ntwenda kugumiza mu discussions zebyo bintu bitwaganiraho we want to expand this cyabe cyo kudetermininga forum eji twenda guma turonkingira ebintu ebyo konka for now tubentandika ntwadvertise tweta everyone aho kandi twenda every munyibanda buri munyibanda wena no free kwiza kuganira maybe tuiza kukora an intentional program tubete all leaders then tumanye ngo babora tubarangire turaba handling konka tubeta kubeta twenda bize as Ibanda people berete nka onaberiyaso kwa kwereta konka twayakira tourists babebagiro mu nomanya Uganda neine national park free days so hine baroko tourists abagire yo baketa mwaka sente babariyomba kiringa nebichunchu so Karumna Lumumba Ariaha anana Kakuru Esau so babebagiro mu national park akwehamu kuchopinga kasente kabo so ancho chibatatandi chanitwe konga mu tutwire nabo so twantwenda uza omugalare kujya mutwena tuganiye tugiye twaganiye tukuza kuhendera konka na nyenda kakubari omuntu ine kibuzo specifically to one of the key speakers abo twagera ninga ene member wa kuno wana agani arikwenda abuze certain question to the fellow abambaganira mubuze then tuichirize other members aba participating tuganire kugira ngo tuije tendere yes umuzinda rugundo gura RDC gumpe
ndakubuza ikibuzo about service delivery ndukuruka mutwire ninkure menyeto muri Uganda kandi nyo nija kukuzo bwonko bwanje if you don't interact you not know ikibuzo ikikunteganisa until today even as the church where I work why do we give a service that people are unable to afford?
How?
Quick example, warita amashanyarazi
but is the last user able to pay that? We are
Yes.
talking about rural RDC tugamba. That's my question. To in structures nunjamazam as Uganda, I've tried to structures in Munyoneza use. I've reached minister were used not once, not twice, because it's where I report to. Baram. Muburize ahabwakino mureta services ezo muntu wahansi zatakubasa kwa affording even through the use wa comparist product noreba omushisho go atubanza kutwegesa ari kuyatushobora bintu numurebe gisoda wajukora kwa kwamba jukora rest user tutwena tuturya like for example tutukwinganisha mishara kunga twena ntunywa soda but our income is different. Amashanyaza gutwareta omucyaro ndi neighbor wa Kamagara twokwe Kamagara basakushoshora unit y'amashanyarazi but I cannot afford, but you expect me to use the same services. Mbeni nyabuzi ijo, do you know national water is ene kwikombyaro hatiya ninga yishikire national water barahamwe ene kwikayo kunka owo mucyaro nawo mutawuni bashoshoza kukoraki kushana and you expect corruption ngutekuza kubaho aho no washanjira umuntu. That's why we have corruption ni eje ndio nindeba aho no warete icyaro 10 ukachiwa amashanyarazi utwa zenyuma ya mita unchenderezo twokwe utohakawaya. Why? So
okay.
Morals is fair aho
we were mnonga reverend ensonga ejo niza ugigamba omukuru wa PFF obuyana agamba nkamweta PPF hata nyigisa akakazina n'akakwata ganjeta PPF konka F niyo kwegarakamu, so it is PFF ni mu mwaka somera. So ekiyana agamba no kugira ngu ekintu ekitukweta service delivery ngo bariyomba tukora mwaka sente oguyatandika rukusobora voting na n'omusoro kugira ngu iwe noba noreba otabwenki bariyomba twara kukora amashanyarazi na namizi na national water konka hariyo that tax eyo bariyomba kora ki. So ningira kutera twatire ekiganiro kya patent zabuuza whether the interest is it on service delivery ninga omusoro gukora sente. Gilbert Rwanda konka hino bhawa akavuyo mukatoma abakatoma bakakwata emihoro birusi abagutwara ya mizi abakabina mizi gaho ga Paris baga. So koje tutaragiriyo tukaganira na communities bakaheza bakachiringa mukache bakabanje abakatoma omuntu bakwenda yo muntu wachi okutwara ya mizi. So at the end of the day nkito kutulya mwine kwebuza ekibuzo yonkiwe ni osome ni nchimanya, is it that government neyane etwara obuhereza ninga neyane etwara omusoro? Honorable Dan Chimoso atakabire MP akabana yero omuntu gwe bakutukamweta Busenya arugamba kwe barije kusala mu Busenyi yizaganira as a keynote speaker mba members ba district abe bahire bufo yagira ati nimanya ebife mufunire ba yero C5 bahimwena ati nefo birarete mwiza kuba corrupt atkonka nisaba I hope you don't become corrupt as soon as possible. Akajata, I definitely know you will become corrupt, but I hope you don't become corrupt as soon as possible. So twinekwebuza ejemisoro yitukusaswa agamiza itugatwara. There are many interests. It is not about nguyo noza kufuna mizi you are going to get water. There are other interests which of course omuntu waburizo naza kusemerwa kuba kuretera town council ogurichera bakwa district o celebrating konka noba nomanyikire behind that. So tuzabantu ganiro konka, that is the idea behind. Any other question? Tutakajire nkesiga Joshua then sigazo wa Kyagulanyi.
Yeah, well, mwebare mnonga bona basakusanga aha tinkuhamya oba ekibuuzo kyanje nkyakuba nkizowa bwana RDC oba tinkumanya omulimo yakubasa kugira kwara kingarukemo akatwina turi Abany'Ibanda. Nindeba twina enkuntu twanzoreka abanyabutegeki tubaterera side edge but nindeba ngo ikintu titwenda kukiha grassroot eyindi kugamba one kugira ngo twatwina akakiko akakutebekanisa byo kutera bururu kabasize kuyiza hansi aha ayikutandikira kubasa kushomesa abantu aha bwakino batera karuru no baseme kuba no baronda muntu ki ninga mu buryo ki ahabo kuba emyaka yanje futandika kutera karuru nyowe manifeste ina bempurure keriye ya wichitine sayo wirika gutam 7 ko nkabanda bamanya na RC1 kwika hari manya MP manya no bayi tino wona abiye narahurire ho ngwa yine manifesto ngwa yina agambara abantu atanaza kubakorera iki ninga naza kubakorera iki oyironka bwana RDC ki yagamba ari kukiza kasento mu kusengera waraji ubwo no barakora ki ekinde cyo kureberaho nimbasa kucireta nti anka tukuzafutanga ku registering ndangamuntu ababindangamuntu barabasize kuyiza hansi kusensitizinga abantu aho wakitukose ndangamuntu abantu bona bakosa amazina fa konka atahifikire kuyiza byabakwatama kugira ngo ekitongore cyo kirabasize kuyiza hansi kusomesa abantu mbwenu nki RDC tinkomanya ubundi nkimo bundi mwarabireba ko n'umuturo omutawuni nyoboni nduga hishongoro noreba cyabe cyaro ubundi mwaho mu municipality mwararebere election commission neyiza esomesa abantu ebagira mutera mutakaruru oyo no kutera karuru akubo kwito n'abantu abinje kutera karuru bakakurugaho bakabake sente bwenu kabinisha kugira ngo
noiza ureto gumuzinda turebe RDC anasa kugaruka mukache konka arona naba abakora umbyendanga muntu ebyo konka arwendanga muntu aronerana na electoral commission konka tebyo mbaho atakumanya konka obaka sente ka kuka sensitization akahino kariya ninga shi is it intentional kujya abantu bagume batakutera karuru ninga shi is it that it is not important kujya ngo abantu bacenga ko baratera karuru konka katurebe RDC no kigambo cye
kwebali bwana Justice kandi na mugenzi wito wa Gishongoro webali munonga bwebuzo byawe byo icyo kubanza echa electoral commission ako wajangu twatayira bibembezi munonga konka stie byona no mabye bya bibembeza kwa bibembezi no bine koreka abantu muhanda ekitongo eki electoral commission nicho kurebe ekiteramo nk'eki kirya ekiteramo nk'eki nkiza kutuyamba nk'Abany'Ibanda kugira ngo tukozese ekitongo eki electoral commission eberango nkibiteka radio amikutuza TV bwa advert nkibutaho ningeze sente mbazito mukotufu mukere na skati zifu mukere ezo ziribwa emotoka nwane yanda ari umuntu bavuga atera isaza akanga polisi atembara na nkeji Nyakatete agaruka wena atambara abantu bacenaga mukono Ibanda y'amatembano bamumanya barakireyo voter education iryo ne yokorwa because omuntu wabutosha yaba ino kwegesibwa namazima abebembezi kabize ba misleading konko kwegesibwa ko kabe nkuyambaho na government kufuna court leaders because nyino kwikiriza emirunde mingi in most cases the court of leaders determines the court of services warebe cyangwa kuchemi nuwo mwebembezo warasanga arufuninga mukora civil suit na boarding akubana n'umutwe no guteka nko kuba gwemi omuntu yayi n'umutwe gwa kati no mutega kati konko gwa ino mutwe gurinke mbumburi ibare no mutwe wa kumutega kati mbishaka bimononga so electoral commission esemi kwande za ground abantu bamanyo mugaso gwayo nuguha